Welcome back, those of you still with us. In today's video, we'll start with the weekly statistics, then break down the top 10 worst shootings of the week ordered by number of fatalities. This week ranges from a triple homicide in rural East Texas that ended with a minivan plowing into a Buc-ee's, to a family annihilation in Pima, Arizona that now stands as one of the worst domestic cases of the year. If you appreciate these videos, please leave a like and subscribe for weekly updates on gun violence in America. Let's get into it. From October 13th to October 19th, the United States recorded 560 shootings. Those incidents left 254 people dead, including 218 victims and 36 suspects. 446 were injured. This week, California tops the list with 26 deaths across 41 incidents, followed by Texas with 19 and North Carolina with 14. Arizona stands out for a different reason. Despite having only 10 incidents, it recorded the highest fatality to incident ratio this week, driven almost entirely by the 4 dead in Pima. Turning to the cities, Chicago is back at the top with 9 killed in 37 shootings, followed closely by Milwaukee with 8 in just 14 incidents, and Philadelphia with 7 in 21. Pima, Arizona appears unusually high this week with 4 people killed in a single incident. It ranks alongside major metros like Los Angeles and St. Louis. Now for the small slice of good news, this week's No Shooting Award goes to Hawaii, Idaho, Maine, Montana, New Hampshire, Vermont, and Wyoming, none of which recorded a single shooting. Honorable mentions go to Minnesota, Rhode Island, South Dakota, and West Virginia, all of which reported shootings but no fatalities. That does it for this week's numbers. Now let's break down the 10 worst shootings of the week, starting at number 10. Number 10. Spanish Fort, Alabama. Late Sunday morning, October 19th, officers in Spanish Fort were called to a turnout on the Mobile Bay Causeway after family members spotted a white Chevrolet Tahoe parked at a popular fishing spot and realized something was wrong. Patrol cars lined the eastbound side of the causeway near the Mid-Bay exit as police approached the SUV. Inside, they found a man and a woman unresponsive, both dead from gunshot wounds. The scene quickly turned from a welfare check into a homicide investigation, with detectives and crime scene units focusing their attention on the vehicle and the stretch of roadway around it. By Monday, police had identified the couple as 41-year-old Vera Monique Seffel Dubose and her husband, 36-year-old Taurine Dubose, both from Mobile. Investigators say preliminary evidence points to an apparent murder-suicide, with Taurine shooting his wife before turning the gun on himself. Chief John Barber told reporters that Taurine had been in contact with his family through Saturday night and into the early hours of Sunday, and that the couple appears to have spent part of the night in Mobile before ending up on the causeway. Detectives are working to piece together a full timeline of their movements and have been reviewing interviews with anyone who might have seen them in the hours before the shooting. At this time, police say there is no indication that anyone else was involved. In the days after the killings, friends and colleagues flooded social media with tributes to Vera Monique, who many knew as V. A close friend who worked with her in the emergency department described her as calm under pressure, generous with her time, and the kind person who turned coworkers into family. She was remembered for her faith, her sense of style, her decorating skills, and the way she called everyone she loved Pooh. Those who knew the couple said Vera Monique loved her husband and their family, which has made the tragedy even harder for them to understand. Chief Barber called it a major loss for the families and for the community, noting that Spanish Fort experienced another murder-suicide last year and that even small, quiet cities are not insulated from lethal domestic violence. Number 9. Memphis, Tennessee. Just after 4:30 a.m. on Tuesday morning, officers were called to the intersection of Airways Boulevard and Riley in the Bethel Grove area for reports of a shooting. When they arrived, they found 2 women in the street with gunshot wounds and a man who had also been shot. One of the women was pronounced dead at the scene, the second was rushed to a hospital in critical condition, and the man was also taken to a hospital with life-threatening injuries from what police described as a self-inflicted gunshot wound. Detectives quickly determined that all 3 people knew each other. According to Memphis police, the violence started as an argument between the man and his girlfriend while she was talking with her younger sister. Investigators say the boyfriend pulled out a gun during the dispute, shot his girlfriend, then turned the weapon on the younger sister before shooting himself. A relative told local reporters that the sisters were 26 and 20 years old, and that the older sister was hit in the head and chest while the younger sister was shot twice. The younger woman survived and was later released from hospital to continue recovering at home. The man died at the hospital from his injuries, and investigators are treating the case as a domestic dispute that escalated into murder-suicide. Their mother, LaShonda Stokes, says she first learned something was wrong when she answered a call and heard one of her daughters screaming for her. She told reporters that her youngest tried to protect her oldest sister when the argument turned violent and that both were shot within moments. Stokes described her daughters as close, saying they walked together that morning and had their lives pulled apart in an instant. Neighbors in Bethel Grove and nearby Orange Mound said it was painful to see yet another domestic dispute end in gunfire on their streets. Memphis police leadership offered condolences to the family at the scene and called the shooting a stark example of how quickly intimate partner conflicts can turn deadly. Number 8. Anchorage, Alaska. On Friday night, October 17th, Anchorage officers were dispatched just after 8:20 p.m. to the area of 8th Avenue and Cordova Street for reports of gunfire in the downtown core. When they arrived, they found a man and a woman in an alcove near an apartment building by the Red Cross, both with gunshot wounds to the head and trauma to the upper body. Medics confirmed they were dead at the scene, and homicide detectives were called in to document the area and collect shell casings. The killings came only about an hour and a half after a separate, unrelated homicide on Fiddlehead Place, where a woman had been fatally stabbed, putting much of the city on edge. Within a day, investigators focused on 36-year-old Mario Jackson as the suspect in the double shooting. According to charging documents, surveillance video shows a man and a woman arguing with Jackson, who was carrying a large chest-mounted speaker and riding an electric bike. The footage allegedly captures him loading a handgun magazine, shooting the woman twice at close range, reloading, then firing a fatal shot to her head before turning the gun on the man moments later. Detectives tracked an e-bike seen fleeing the scene and reviewed security footage from the Travel Inn, where Jackson lived and worked, which appeared to show him returning to his room minutes after the shooting. Police later recovered the bike and .45 caliber ammunition consistent with the casings found in the alcove, and noted that the e-bike had been freshly spray painted, with matching paint still on Jackson's hands when they contacted him. He has since been indicted on 2 counts of first-degree murder and 4 counts of second-degree murder, with bail set at $1 million. Anchorage police later identified the male victim as 33-year-old Bobby Deloach Jr., while withholding the woman's name under department policy because the case is considered domestic in nature. Investigators say Jackson and the female victim were believed to be in a relationship, and charging documents indicate the 2 victims were dating one another. The shooting unfolded during a busy time downtown as visitors and residents were in the area for events and shelter. And APD leadership publicly thanked detectives and patrol officers for moving quickly to identify and arrest the suspect. The department has kept additional patrols in the area and continues to investigate the circumstances that led up to the confrontation in the alcove. For many in Anchorage, the case stands out for its sudden brutality and for the fact that 2 separate homicides unfolded in the city within the span of a few hours that evening.
Get the fuck out the vehicle now! You already tried to hit me once! You move this vehicle again, I will fire!
Number 7. Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Shortly after 7:30 a.m. on Saturday morning, October 18th, Milwaukee officers were called to a house near West Appleton Avenue and West Ruby after reports of gunfire inside a residence that doubled as a private poker room. When officers entered, they found one man dead in the basement and another gravely wounded outside on the front lawn. The second victim, identified as 33-year-old Shaquille Madison, was rushed to the hospital but died a short time later. The Milwaukee County Medical Examiner identified the other victim as 43-year-old Dwayne Carter. Police arrested a 35-year-old man on the scene without incident. According to the criminal complaint, the shooting unfolded after an all-night high-stakes poker game carried into the morning hours. Prosecutors say the suspect, Donovan C. Jones, was playing cards with Carter and Madison when the 2 men ran into the kitchen and said someone in a ski mask was trying to enter the home with a gun. Surveillance footage later confirmed a masked figure stepping inside for only a few seconds before leaving. Jones, Carter, and Madison each pulled out firearms and retreated into the dark basement. Jones told investigators he fired multiple rounds at what he believed was a silhouette approaching him, fearing they were about to be robbed. Police recovered 9 spent casing that all came from Jones's weapon and found no evidence that anyone else fired a shot. Madison managed to flee the home but collapsed outside, while Carter died in the basement. Family and friends described Madison as a devoted father, DJ, small business owner, and someone who lived deeply within his community. Loved One says he was an energetic, creative, and known for bringing people together. The poker setup itself appeared to be more structured than a casual home game, with multiple tables, whiteboards, house rules posted on the walls, and significant amounts of cash present. Jones reportedly had more than $5,200 on him when police arrived, and Madison's backpack contained roughly $8,300. Prosecutors accepted Jones's account that he feared a robbery, but charged him with 2 counts of first-degree reckless homicide, arguing his response showed utter disregard for human life. The case remains one of the more unusual double homicides in Milwaukee this year, blending fear, confusion, and poor visibility into a deadly chain of split-second decisions. Number 6. Baxter, Tennessee. Just after 7:30 p.m. on Wednesday night, October 15th, deputies in DeKalb County were called to Vickers Ridge Road in the rural Austin Bottom area for reports of a shooting near the roadway. When they arrived, they found 3 people who had been shot, 2 adults who were unresponsive, and a 3rd man who was still alive but critically wounded. Medics pronounced the 2 deceased at the scene, and the surviving victim was airlifted by helicopter to a regional hospital. Deputies from Putnam County assisted at the location, along with multiple EMS units, as investigators secured the stretch of road where the violence occurred. By the following day, authorities identified the victims as 68-year-old Karen Carter and their 29-year-old son, Seal Martindale. According to early findings from the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation, the shooting stemmed from an altercation involving all 3 individuals shortly before gunfire erupted. Officials have not released details about the nature of the dispute, the weapon used, or who first opened fire, and they have not announced any arrest or charges. The investigation remained active as TBI agents and the district attorney's office continue interviewing witnesses and processing evidence from the roadside scene.
Hey man, yeah, look, I'm on the way to go turn myself in, bruh.
Number 5. Cleveland, Ohio. Shortly after 1:15 a.m. on Saturday morning, Cleveland officers were dispatched to the Sunoco gas station on Fleet Avenue near Broadway after multiple ShotSpotter alerts and 911 calls reported gunfire. When they arrived, they found 4 men down in the parking lot with gunshot wounds. A 37-year-old man and 46-year-old man were pronounced dead at the scene. The other 2 victims, ages 31 and 34, were rushed to Metro Health in critical condition. Detectives cordoned off the lot and recovered shell casings and 2 guns while documenting the area around the pumps and storefront. According to early reports, the shooting followed an altercation involving several people who gathered outside the station minutes before the gunfire. Investigators say the confrontation escalated quickly, with multiple shots fired from at least 2 weapons. The Cuyahoga County medical examiner later identified the victims who died as 37-year-old Dion Stallings and 46-year-old Bruce Singleton, both from Cleveland. Detectives are still piecing together whether the men involved knew one another and what sparked the dispute. No arrests have been announced as of the latest update, and police have not said whether any of the recovered firearms were tied to specific shooters. Residents in the Slavic Village neighborhood described hearing a burst of rapid shots followed by sirens and a heavy police response. The gas station sits on a busy corridor that has seen periodic violence, and Saturday's shooting added to concerns about conflict spilling into public spaces late at night. Family members of the victims have begun gathering at the site, placing candles under the station's canopy. As investigators review footage from nearby businesses and interview witnesses, the community is left with more questions than answers about a confrontation that took 2 lives and left 2 others fighting to recover. Number 4. Milwaukee, Wisconsin. On Sunday, October 19th, Milwaukee police responded to a string of shootings across the city that began mid-afternoon and continued late into the night. The first call came around 2:20 p.m. when a 31-year-old man showed up at a hospital with gunshot wounds from a shooting near 17th and Concordia. Hours later, officers were dispatched at 9:20 p.m. to 27th and Atkinson, where they found 64-year-old Marcus Smith and 50-year-old Sandra Lee lying in the street with fatal wounds. Then at 10:25 p.m., officers were sent to 31st and Cortland, where they found a 44-year-old man dead inside a vehicle after being shot multiple times. By the end of the night, 3 people were dead and 1 injured in 3 separate but closely timed incidents. Detectives quickly connected the killings. According to police, 26-year-old Michael Williams was identified as the suspect in all 3 shootings and later arrested nearby. Surveillance footage showed Williams chasing Sandra Lee down the sidewalk with a gun before shooting her, then firing on Marcus Smith moments later. Additional footage from earlier in the day captured Williams spending several hours with Smith and Lee between 4 p.m. and 9 p.m., contradicting early assumptions that they were random targets. Police say Williams drove to 31st and Cortland, where they shot Lake and Drake Roby, found later with multiple gunshot wounds to his back inside a black Audi. Ballistic evidence matched shell casings from both scenes to the same firearm, and 2 witnesses identified Williams by his clothing and distinctive Puma shoes. When questioned, Williams allegedly told detectives he did the city a favor. The deaths of Smith and Lee shook the neighborhood surrounding Gary's Food Mart, where loved ones gathered the next morning and pointed out the taped-over bullet holes still visible on the building. Family members described Smith as a loved father figure whose humor and warmth anchored the family through tough times. Witnesses said they heard 4 sharp shots before seeing both victims lying on the pavement as officers attempted CPR. At 31st and Cortland, residents reported seeing officers surround the Audi with weapons drawn, not yet realizing the shooting was linked to the double homicide an hour earlier. The rapidly unfolding series of killings marked one of Milwaukee's darkest single-night incidents this year, leaving multiple families grieving and a neighborhood stunned by the speed at which the violence moved from one block to the next. Number 3. Macon, Georgia. Just before 10:30 p.m. on Saturday, October 18th, deputies in Bibb County were called to the 500 block of William Street East after reports that a man had been shot and taken to the hospital by private vehicle. That victim, 27-year-old Quintarius Townsend, was pronounced dead shortly after arriving at Pima, Macon. Around 11 p.m., deputies were called back to the same area where they found 21-year-old Brandon Thomas and 16-year-old Markel Bonner Jr., unresponsive in a roadway with gunshot wounds. Both were pronounced dead at the scene. Investigators documented a long stretch of the street covered in shell casings, with residents reporting that the gunfire sounded like automatic weapons fire. Over the next several days, deputies identified 21-year-old Rakimia Shatayla Henley as a suspect in the triple homicide. Witness interviews, forensic evidence, and statements gathered at the scene led investigators to secure warrants for her arrest on 3 counts of murder, along with charges of aggravated assault and tampering with evidence. Henley turned herself in on October 27th and was booked into Bibb County Jail without bond. Detectives confirmed that 2 of the victims, Brandon Thomas and Quintarius Townsend, were brothers, while Bonner was a 16-year-old killed at the scene. Investigators recovered both an AK-47 rifle and a handgun at the location, though they have not detailed how each weapon was used. At least 50 shell casings were found across the street, and deputies have not yet disclosed the full motive behind the shooting. Residents described a burst of rapid gunfire that echoed throughout the neighborhood, followed by another volley more than an hour later. One woman said she initially thought the first barrage was fireworks until she heard the second and realized something serious had happened. Neighbors said violence in the area has increased in recent years, and several mentioned local gang activity, though deputies have not confirmed any connection to that night's events. Family members of the victims gathered at the scene the next morning, with relatives mourning the loss of 2 brothers and a teenager in a single night. The investigation remains active as detectives continue working through the witness accounts and the large amounts of evidence collected from the street. Number 2. Mabank, Texas. Around 2:30 a.m. on Friday, October 17th, deputies in Henderson County responded to a home on Taos Drive in the Cedar Creek Cove subdivision in Mabank after receiving reports of a shooting with multiple victims. Inside the house, deputies found 51-year-old Kimberly Simpson and 72-year-old Connie Patrick dead from gunshot wounds. A third victim, 57-year-old Ronnie Hammonds, was rushed to the hospital but died from a combination of gunshot wounds, blunt force trauma, and stab wounds. 2 additional men, 24-year-old Colton Reed and 70-year-old Henry Hopgood, were found with gunshot injuries and transported to Tyler Hospital. As investigators processed the scene, a wounded man banged on a neighbor's door pleading for help, telling her he had been shot by his own brother. Authorities have not confirmed any family relationships, but that detail became a part of early witness accounts. By 5 a.m., the search for the suspected shooter, 29-year-old Christopher Kyle Reed Jr., moved nearly 40 miles west. Ennis police and Ellis County deputies responded to a chaotic scene at the Buc-ee's off Interstate 45, where a maroon 2003 Dodge Caravan had crashed through the southwest entrance of the store. According to investigators, Reed struck a woman in her 30s who was walking near the entrance, pinning her against a sales display. As soon as the vehicle came to was transported to Baylor University Medical Center in critical condition and later died from his injuries. Neighbors in Mabank described the gunfire as sudden and violent, waking several homes. One resident said the shooting victim collapsed on her porch, leaving blood on the door, deck, and steps as he tried to explain what happened. Another lifelong neighbor said the victims were a church-going family he had known for decades, describing them as kind people caught in escalating family conflict inside the house. The investigation now spans multiple jurisdictions, with the Henderson County Sheriff's Office, Texas Rangers, DPS, and Ennis police sorting through evidence from both the homicide scene and the Buc-ee's crash. The motive for the killings have not been disclosed, and authorities have not confirmed the relationship between Reed and the 5 victims.
Who was that about yours? You got that? Drop the knife! Drop it! Drop it!
Number 1. Pima, Arizona. Just before 1 p.m. on Thursday, October 16th, officers in Pima were dispatched to a reported medical situation at a home on South Main Street, just south of the Center Street intersection. When they went inside, they found 4 people dead from gunshot wounds. The residence at 27 South Main was quickly taped off as additional units from Safford Police, Thatcher Police, and the Graham County Sheriff's Office arrived to assist. A mobile command center was brought in, and the house remained under guard into the evening while investigators secured search warrants and documented the scene. Police later identified the dead as 64-year-old Dwayne Michael Jones, his daughter, 31-year-old Justice Jones, and her 2 children, 8-year-old Time Oates and 9-year-old Kyle Oates. All 4 had been shot, and officers found the firearm still in Dwayne's possession, leading to investigators to treat the scene as an apparent murder-suicide within a single family. The remains are being transported to Tucson for autopsies by Pima County Office of the Medical Examiner. In a brief statement, Pima police said they do not believe there are any outstanding suspects and noted that multiple local agencies and the Graham County Attorney's Office are involved in the investigation. Relatives told reporters they were unaware of any prior mental health issues involving Dwayne, and one family member said investigators informed them that he was believed to have killed his daughter and grandchildren before turning the gun on himself. Another family member, Brianna Flores, pointed to a short goodnight post Justice made on Facebook the night before with a strange emoji saying it now stands out in hindsight as a sign something was wrong. Friends and teachers described Time and Kyle as bright, creative children who were always together and had a promising future ahead of them. And that concludes the 10 worst shootings this week. 10 snapshots from a country where the body count resets every Monday, and the name changed long before anyone can remember them. Another week gone, another week coming. If you appreciate these videos, make sure to like and subscribe for weekly updates on gun violence in America. Thank you so much for watching. Stay safe.